Hello, social media friends. I'm Viridiana Marquez with DRB Media Communications Digital News, and here's the story.
On Monday, October 5th, Midland Mayor Patrick PAYTON held a press conference regarding the protests in front of the home of Midlander Bob Fu and his family, located in the 4700 block of Bishop Castle Road. Bob Fu is a pastor and the founder of China Aid. During the press conference, Mayor PAYTON said that the FBI, the CIA, and other law enforcement agencies were involved in the investigation of terroristic threats made against Pastor Bob Fu and his family.
As you are well aware, there's some interesting things that have been transpiring here in the city related to what are essentially some communist agitators who have been making threats, not veiled threats, but aggressive threats towards Bob Fu and his family, towards China Aid and the work that China Aid has been doing for a number of years, ever since Bob Fu fled China for his life back in 1997 and hasn't been allowed to set foot in China since 1997. Even some of the allegations have been that he has traveled back and forth to China and various things, which is utter foolishness. I would direct you, and I'm going to refer to my phone to give you some references here for a moment. I would reference an article in the Wall Street Journal dated October 4th, 2020. The title of the article is "A Fundraising Feud Spurs Anger Among a Chinese Exile, His Followers, and His Detractors." As you know, this particular individual has been making some threats on social media. If you've seen some of them, I don't know if you have. Some bounty threats on Bob Fu and his family via Twitter as well as YouTube. Don't know if those have been taken down or not, but those have been threats made towards Bob Fu and his family. I've been in discussions with Bob, been in discussions with his family. We have them in the safest place we can have them at this particular point, trying to protect them and the entire family as you would expect us to do. Midlanders don't do well or put up well with people who make threats, literally terrorist threats, against our citizens. I think this is something we would have never expected right here in Midland, Texas. I would go on to say, as I move to a separate message, some of the things you've been hearing are about how Bob Fu is an agent of the CCCP, of the Communist Party of China. With that being said, that means that according to those individuals, Bob Fu has all kinds of power, and apparently they've hired him to be a Christian leader in the Communist Party. And so if that is true, I hope you can hear the satire dripping from my mouth. We have made a list of people that Bob Fu, the agent of China, would like to see released from prison since he holds that kind of power and these accusations are being made against him. I'll read some of those. Right now, Pastor John Chow, who has served as a missionary in Myanmar's Wa state, transforming the lives of more than 2,000 impoverished minority children. Chinese officials knew that he repeatedly crossed the border between China and Myanmar because of his work. They allowed him to do this for 3 years. He sits in prison today. So we would ask for the Communist Party to release him on Bob Fu's orders. Guo Zhan was an associate professor. I'll spell that name for you. Guoquan, just in case the Communist Party is listening on. An associate professor at Nanjing Normal University until dismissed based on criticisms he published towards the Chinese Communist Party, serving a 10-year prison for subversion of state power. Let me spell this name for you. Alimujang, Yamiti, Yimiti. He is a Uyghur Christian house church leader, criminally detained January 12, 2008 for inciting separatism, unlawfully providing state secrets to overseas organization, formally arrested on February 20th. Award-winning human rights lawyer Zhao Zhisheng, Zhisheng, has handled a number of high-profile cases, including a dispute over government-seized oil fields in Jiangxi, the cases of Christians in the far west region of Zhejiang and Falun cases. Another one, Wang Bijang, permanent resident of the United States and a Christian, a veteran of China's pro-democracy movement, currently serving a life sentence on charges of espionage and terrorism. Labsong Serang, Tsering, sentenced to 10 years in prison in 2013 for intentional homicide in connection to the self-immolation of 8 Tibetans, although 5 of the self-immolations never occurred. The list goes on and on. Pastor Zhang Shaoji, Shoajie, of Nanli County Christian Church in China's central Henan province, currently serving a 12-year prison term for gathering a crowd to disrupt the public order and a fabricated fraud charge. And finally, Hu Zhizhen, S-H-I-G-E-N, pro-democracy activist, a renowned church elder, currently waits out a 7.5-year sentence on falsified charges of subversion of state power. A writer, renowned literary critic, one of China's leading political activists, and the 2010 Nobel Peace Prize laureate Liu Xiaobo was perhaps China's most well-known political prisoner currently behind bars. He was in prison in northeast China's Liaoning province, serving an 11-year sentence for subversion until his death July 13, 2017. All of these names provided to us as well as others by Mr. Fu, because apparently he holds the power of the Communist Party, so we would ask the Communist Party to let these people go. Finally, let me reiterate, we have Mr. Fu and his family in safe protection. We're protecting him and his family. Our police department, as well as the national law enforcement agencies, the FBI and the CIA are heavily involved in this to make sure our citizens are taken care of, and a freedom fighter named Bob Fu is taken care of regardless of the terroristic tactics of this man who has issued these warrants for, or the bounty for his life. With that, I'll take any questions.
Do we know who this group of people are, where they came from?
The people that have showed up here in Midland, they're nothing more than hired hench people from this individual. We're doing our research to figure out where they've come from. We know they're not from here because we know where they stayed last night. And so they hired a bus to bring them to the location. So we're doing all the work that we can do to figure out where they've come from. As you've noticed, they will not pull down a mask or anything like that. And anytime you ask them a question, they start speaking in Mandarin or start their chants. So that's all we know from them at this time.
When did the city become aware of some of these threats against Bob Fu's life?
About a week and a half ago, when the first protesters showed up on his front porch. It was a small group back, I think, about a Saturday or so ago. 5 or 6 of them. I was over at his house and had a few discussions with them, tried to quite literally infiltrate one of their phones to find out we were being broadcast on our Twitter account. And so that's all we knew of that point. And then we found out about the threats being made. And then today they escalated.
What agencies has the city been in contact with?
We've been in contact with every law enforcement agency that you could imagine because this is a national and federal issue. Everything that has 3 letters in it.
And what information have they provided the agencies?
Can't go into what information they've provided because it's an ongoing investigation.
Any information as to a possible end of this?
No. We have no idea of knowing when the end of this could be, but people need to realize we're going to protect Bob Fu and his family, and their location will not be known. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, did you feel a little threatened today?
I felt threatened for the last week and a half, and so who knows what's going to happen to me, but I trust our police department and everybody here to take care of me and my family as well.
Does it seem a little surreal to you? I mean, when we got the first phone call this morning, it was like, what are they talking about?
Well, it seemed a little surreal about a week and a half ago. It's kind of like what I've said, Scott, you've heard me say several times when I said Midlanders are slow to join a fight, but when we're picked on long enough, we'll join the fight. And so you can just add this to the coronavirus, you can add it to the economic downturn, you can add it to nearly everything we've been a part of. And this is just the lot we've got, and we're going to do our best to protect our city. Any other questions?
Can you describe Bob Fu's importance to the community?
Well, Bob Fu's importance to this community began back in about 2004 or 5 because of his relationships with Midlanders that asked him to come here and let this be a hub for what he does. The most important part about Bob Fu's relationship is what he's done to gather people for the freedom of those who have been persecuted far beyond just brothers and sisters in Christ, as he has advocated for Muslims, he has advocated for all religions, and he has advocated for secular artists who are getting censored for their work in China as well. The question of why he's being targeted is one we're trying to find out. It's one we really can't figure out, except that I really can't even speculate on that. It's something we can't come to grips with, of why someone in this organization is saying he's a member of the Communist Party when, quite frankly, all he's done has been wanted by the Communist Party. So we're still trying to figure that out.
Do you know if there are any operatives here in the city that's watching things?
It would be rather naive to assume there weren't operatives in this city and all over this city. Is that it? All right, thank you all very much.
This is DRB Media Communications Digital News.
Thank you for following us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, also at DannyVisionEntertainment.com. For DRB Media Communications Digital News, Viridiana Marquez.